Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, so this video is going to be an eclectic amalgamation of different thoughts and ideas. I went into the city today again. I might put a little short video of this cute little neighborhood, just adorable houses in the marina. But I had a really interesting experience on the way home. I stopped off at a store and somebody said some things to me that just kind of blew my mind. And I realized this person, they were doing it unconsciously. And I said something at the end. I said, "Do you know what you're doing right now?" He said, "No, what?" Okay, so years ago, I've mentioned this many times, because this training had the biggest impact in the world on me. I went to a Tony Robbins UPW Unlimited Power Firewalk. It was a 2.5 day, 3-day training, and you walk on fire. Really, really cool experience, by the way. And that blew me away. But this other training blew me away in a spiritual way. And also in an unconscious way, meaning understanding the unconscious mind. One of the things you learn in NLP or during these trainings, or you should learn, is, have you ever guys seen the image of the iceberg where like 90+% of it's underneath the water and it's massive and just a little tiny bit, like 1% sticking above the water? Well, that 1% is your ego, and generally that's where most people communicate and think from. So that's the 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information. So most people can handle 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information. So 7 minus 2 is 5, and 7 plus 2 is 9. So somewhere in between that range between 5 and 9. Now, if you can learn to access your unconscious mind, you tap into more of your intelligence, more of your knowledge, more of your experience that's stored in your memories. So you have a lot more, call it intelligence or education or experience, than you realize on that small egotistical level. So the ego blocks out pain, suffering, scary things, but the problem is if you don't open that door, you can't tap into more of your intelligence, and that's done by opening up emotionally. Now here's the deal. One thing they're teaching us is, look, your unconscious mind is always there. It's always aware. It's always paying attention. The question is, are you listening to it? Now here's something they taught me. I think this was the first time I heard this. I might have heard it before but didn't quite grasp it. I had heard it before. I heard it in psychology class, and I believe it at a Tony Robbins seminar, but it was essentially this. I think because we were about 2 weeks or more into the training, and we were really going deep, and I was really understanding the unconscious mind a lot better. Now, what they had said is essentially that we are all unconsciously triggering each other, and we are also unconsciously doing therapy with each other. So here's how it works. So let's say you're in a group of friends, or let's say you walk into a coffee shop, okay? Or you've been going there for a couple of days or whatever. Here's what happens. Your unconscious mind says, hey, I've got something to heal here, right? Now, I'm not saying you verbally say this out loud in that way. You do it unconsciously through your body language, through the stories you share, and how you embed what's called embedded commands. It's like you drop your voice a little bit in a little part of this sentence, a little part of that sentence, and the next one, and those 3 pieces fit together into a sentence, okay? So all of this is done unconsciously. So the other people are like, okay, so I got to play the bad guy, and the other person's like, okay, so you want me to be the nurturer, the good guy, and the other person says, okay, so you want me to be the therapist. So you go in, you talk to people, you're having fun, you're getting coffee, you're hanging out, you're doing whatever. And essentially what happens, there's this unconscious play going on because you're giving them this look, they're giving you that look, and there is this dynamic that unfolds over a period of time. And it could be at a party the first time you went and met 90% of the people. So an entire dynamic could unfold, and if you're really tuned into, I want to use the word energy. It is energy, but there's a conscious level of being aware of this. Like, I'll sit here and watch at a coffee shop when someone walks in, they give someone a look, someone gives them like, okay, because it's like there's a, people get caught up in energy. Okay, I'll give you a good example. I'll give you a good anti-example. I went to Pete's Coffee in the Marina in San Francisco tonight, or earlier tonight, and there was this guy that had walked out of the bathroom, and he was walking past me. I kind of looked at him like, God, that guy looks really familiar. I was like, oh, he used to live in San Rafael. Like, San Rafael is only about 15 minutes from the Golden Gate Bridge, so right across the bridge there. Okay, and I go, wow, man, it's been a long time. He goes, yeah. I go, what's it been, like about a year or two? And he goes, no. He goes, I've been here for 5 years. I go, you live here? He goes, yeah. So we had a brief conversation, and he wanted to engage in more. In fact, he came out and said, hey, do you want to sit down and do politics or talk about politics? You know, I want to interview people and ask their, I was like, no, I'm not interested, because my energy wasn't involved. Okay, now if I would have went with him, I would have got caught up in whatever his shit was. Okay, and I don't want to deal with his shit, because he's a former drug user, but he's always been good to me. Now, when I say shit, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that it's actually a term we use in NLP at the trainings, believe it or not. So I just kind of was like, you know, I kind of came here for a certain purpose. I wanted to read. I want to get something, a certain amount done. And I didn't say this to him, but that's what I'm thinking in the back of my head. Like, no, I'm not interested. He goes, oh, okay. And say, hey, man, I got to go to the bathroom real bad. He goes, oh, okay. And I didn't really blow him off. It was just kind of like, hey, I've got a purpose. I've got an intention. This is why I'm here. And really what it was my energy was not interacting with that energy that he was vibing on. Okay, and that's now what I'm saying is this was not conscious. As I reflect back, I'm like, oh yeah, he was looking for someone to interact with him on this level, because he had something that he was trying to deal with, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not a willing participant here. Not because I didn't care, but because it was kind of like it wasn't a part of my dynamic. In other words, there wasn't something in me that needed to interact with this, to learn, to grow, to heal, or whatever. It was just like, yeah, there's nothing there. There was no energy connection. Alright, so I come back from the city, I ride my bike back, and I had a great day. It was just fun. It was kind of invigorating, I guess. And I was kind of bummed out a little bit when I went into the city. There was something on my mind I couldn't get off my mind. And even on the way home, it didn't. In fact, what happened was I walked into a store when I got home.
Whoa.
Sorry, just being goofy in the video there. So I walked into the store and I talked to Andrew, and he had said something. Hey man, I heard something about, where you live. I'm like, oh yeah, what's that? And so he kind of threw it out there like, oh yeah, we're having these problems and blah blah blah. And he goes, yeah, I've heard it from two different people. So he lives in our neighborhood about, oh god, he lives about 8 blocks away, but we're in the same. Well, actually, technically, he's just outside of the neighborhood. He just told me that tonight. It's technically not the same. So I live in Gershel Park neighborhood. He lives in Bret Hart. So I said what was on my mind, what I was kind of mulling through, and it was something. It doesn't really matter. It was something that was kind of bugging me. It wasn't like a major thing, but it was kind of kind of gnawing at me. And I shared it with him. And now, okay, Andrew, I'm starting to think he might be a Heyoka, because he's the backwards man. He just, how do I say this? He just does some goofy ass stuff like a Heyoka. Heyokas are called clowns because we clown around. We're always joking because we're trying to loosen people up so they can see something from a different perspective. And that's why Heyokas are always called the backwards man, okay? Because they're backwards. What they do is they get you to turn around, face backwards from 180 degrees to see it from the other perspective. And Andrew is the master of this. And so am I. I mean, if there's one thing that I do every time I talk to someone, I'm helping people shift perspectives. Because if you look at something from one perspective, you're stuck. The majority of people that come to me, they always say at one point in time, whether it's a first session, second, third, is I'm stuck and I don't know how to change. I don't know how to get out of this, whatever. I'm stuck. So my whole thing is getting them to shift. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I never thought of it like that. Or I never saw it from that perspective. And all of a sudden like, oh, I can fix this now. So here I am talking to Andrew, and I kind of just threw some stuff out there because I just thought I'll just kind of get it off my mind, right? Like literally. And he starts going into these stories. Like, what was the one story? Let me try to think of this story. Okay, so let me back out a little bit about that first. So he started talking about Poland and Auschwitz and all this stuff, and how they used to let people visit there, but so many people would have to go to see a psychiatrist because it was so disturbing. And they used to let people visit kind of like not like a zoo, but like a museum or whatever. And I think they even charged them to see it. I don't know. But he said they finally they stopped that. He goes, they burned the whole building down. Can you believe that? Just like that. Poof. Gone. Now, then he started talking about... Okay, sorry. Before he started talking about all this, he was talking about what this person was saying about the place where I live. He goes, Mike, every time I hear about that place, it sounds like a loony bin, like Looney Tunes. And he used the movie, what was the movie? It was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So the funny thing is the same actor in this movie is the one that was in the next one I'm going to bring up. And let's see, where's his name? Jack Nicholson, okay? So he goes, have you ever seen it? I go, oh yeah, that was a crazy movie. He goes, your whole apartment building is like that. He goes, Michael, I keep hearing from these people coming in, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, yeah, actually it kind of is. And I said, there's actually quite a few people over the last year or so that moved in that are doing drugs and blah, blah, blah. And he immediately jumped on that. And I forget what he said. But I said, what's the funny thing? I go, the people that are doing the drugs never bother me. And he instantly jumps in and he says, well, of course they're not bothering you. He goes, because they have a life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, they're busy doing their drugs. Now I burst out laughing because I thought that was just so absurd. He goes, no, I'm not joking. Now I start laughing even more, and he goes, no, Mike, I'm not kidding. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He goes, Michael, they're too busy dealing with their drugs and their drug life. He goes, they literally have a life. They're too busy to bother other people. And I thought about that. I go, man, that's a trip because none of them have bothered me. And he goes, every time someone comes in here and complains about that place, he goes, it's the people that just have a regular job. They go home. They don't do anything else. They don't have a life. He goes, they're the ones causing the problems because they don't have a life. Man, I got to tell you, my brain just went wacka, wacka, wacka. It was like, what? Because it actually made sense. Like, oh man, I never thought of it like that. There's actually a couple guys here that are there on top of it, man. They got their shit together. They work. And they have goals, and man, they're on top of it. So kudos to them. But back to what he was saying to me, I had never thought of it from that perspective. So now he goes, hey man, do you remember that other movie that Jack Nicholson was in? I was like, well, which one? He goes, The Shining. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a scary movie. And I go, yeah. He goes, no, that movie was just crazy. It was loony bins, like crazy. I was like, yeah, I remember it. He goes, well, did you know that the actress died? What is her name? I got her name right here. Shelley Duvall died. I go, you mean like the lead character, the female character? He goes, yeah. He goes, she just died recently. I was like, no, I didn't know that. And then he goes, I always thought she was directly related to the famous actor, Robert Duvall. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, it turns out there's absolutely no connection. They're not related in any way, shape, or form. Now, he pulls his hands apart, one representing her, the left hand, and the right hand, and he pulls them far, far apart. He goes, yep, there's absolutely no connection. Now at this point, I'm looking at him going, oh dude, he's doing some techniques here. I'm like, man, this guy is flawless. So he kept yammering on a little bit, and I'm grinning, and I'm in a really, I went from kind of a mood to really feeling really, really good. And I'm looking at him like, oh, he has to know what he's doing. I'm going to break it down for you to give you an idea. First, though, I call him on. It's like, I go, wow, that was really, really good therapy. And he goes, what do you mean? So I'm kind of laughing at this point. I go, do you know that you're doing therapy right now? He goes, what are you talking about? I go, no, seriously. I go, have you trained in this stuff? He goes, no. And I go, come on, dude, tell me the truth. I go, seriously, like I go, dude, you did like, he did reframes, he did anchor collapse, he did a ton of stuff, and I'm gonna break it down in a second. And he swears that he goes, no, because I'm just talking. Now, for those people who might go, oh, he's not a Heyoka unless he's from the, I forget what the tribe is, the Navajo tribe, or I don't think it's the Navajo tribe, but you get these negative Nancys who don't understand what the hell they're talking about. So if you believe in Heyokas, then you also believe in past lives, meaning we get reincarnated. Now, I'm not saying that's true or not, but here's what I am saying. If you were a Heyoka in multiple past lives, guess what? You're still a Heyoka in this life, even if you're a cashier at a store. So the Andrew, I believe he does this stuff completely unconsciously, because about 3 months ago, one day, I was really tuning into this guy and the way he talks to people, how he jokes around and goofs. He's a goof, just like me, funny as hell. I also notice how he reverses things and gets people to see things from the opposite perspective, and they kind of like think about it, like they have these like mini aha moments. So I don't know how many months ago, I start laughing and laughing. It's like, oh, I get it, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, finally, somebody who gets me. Because if you're a Heyoka, people don't get you. Because people are stuck looking at life going from back to front, left to right, and that's it. They can't shift perspectives. They can't turn around. They can't step off to the left and imagine what it would be like if they looked at it at a 33-degree angle. That no one's ever showed them how to do it, so they're just stuck. They think, well, this is just the way life is. And you know what? I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say that to me, well, this is just the way life is. I'm like, really? And I'll give them like 100 examples of other people. Like, well, that's different. I'm like, okay, so what's different? Oh, I don't know. They were just born that way. And that's like the ultimate excuse. When I was a little kid, and I mean little kid, I was like 3.5 years old. I was on like my big wheel or something like. Yeah, I think I got my big wheel, my first big wheel for Christmas. Me and my dad went down and then took a right, and we lived right like if we jumped over our fence, it was just thousands and thousands of acres of land, just cows and horses and just nothing, hills. So if you go down around the corner, go down the block, and then take another right in this courtyard, there's a big gate where you can enter this land. Now, the owners knew us, so they didn't care if my dad had horses, knew the owners, and so it was no big deal. So for some reason, I don't remember why. I think he was going to check the pond or the water to make sure it was high enough for the cows. I don't remember what it was. But right when we went around there, I was ahead of my dad, and all of a sudden, I wasn't really looking. And all of a sudden, there's these 3 Indians in full Indian regalia, the war paint and everything, and bow and arrows, the whole leather, I don't know what they call it, that they wear instead of pants, on these big horses. And I'm like, oh shit! Like, it scared the crap out of me. So I stopped, and I turned around real fast. I kind of tried to burn off to go to my dad, and the dad goes, Michael, it's okay. And I'm like, are you sure? And I kind of looked back, and we walked up to him. And they told my dad, and I remember him saying this, but I didn't understand what he meant until I understood what a Heyoka was. I think it was when I was in Hawaii when I first learned about it. And they said, he's a clown. And I think in the beginning he said he's a Heyoka, but I remember he said something like that, I remember looking at him like, my dad, like, what? And then he goes, he's a clown. Now, my dad had no idea what these guys were talking about, but my dad's like, oh, okay. And I think he also said he's backwards, and my dad just kind of looked down like, oh, okay, like it didn't make any sense. But about 2 decades later, it made a whole lot of sense when I learned what a heyoka was. I was like, oh, that's what they're saying. Alright, so now let me break it down for you. Okay, so essentially, what we do, okay, this is one of the main components of helping people. So when you work with me, it's basically movie time. Unless I ask you a question, you just sit there and listen to my stories, okay? It's very enjoyable, by the way. And so what happens is we learn that metaphors, examples, and stories are the best way to help people's unconscious mind understand something. Because here's the deal. You are hurting in your unconscious emotional system. That's why it hurts. So if I try to logically from that small little ego 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information part, if I try to talk to you from that part to your part, that little 7 plus or minus 2, it won't change anything. You'll still hurt. Okay, how many times have you been hurting or you had a problem and someone says, well, just get over it, or just don't feel that way, well, just screw those guys, or, just like some quick short answer like, well, just ignore them, and you're still hurting. It doesn't work. It doesn't help. I mean, imagine if I just man, I tell you what, I literally would charge you guys $10,000 a session if I could just be like, well, just don't feel that way. Feel better now? Have a nice day. Clearly that logical, like straight to the point, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Well, just get over it. Like, all the bullshit. It's like, it doesn't work. Now, one of the tools is, again, metaphors, stories, and examples. Now, it could be, made up examples or made up stories. Or made up, well, metaphors usually are, like using something or describing something, in a way to where your brain goes, oh, and even if you make up a story, the purpose is to get your unconscious mind to go, oh. See, here's what we found out. If you can understand the story, you can understand the lesson. Now, there's a lot of things they train us to put into these stories to make it more effective. And that's why I was looking at Andrew like, is he really doing this completely unconsciously? It was just really cool to watch him do this. And I will break down what he did. Now, one of the things he said, he was talking about Auschwitz and how they burnt the whole, I think he goes, they burnt the whole building down. They burnt the whole place down, the whole facility. They destroyed it. It's gone. It doesn't even exist anymore. Now, at that point, I'm looking at him like, oh, that's kind of like my situation. Like in my mind, all of a sudden the whole structure of the problem and the building itself is gone. Now, I noticed like at this point, I started feeling like a relief, like, wow, right? And then I was kind of like, wait a minute. Nah, he doesn't know what he's doing. And then he brought up the other movie, and he was talking about how The Shining and how scary it was. And he goes, "Do you remember that the female actress in the movie?" It's like, "Oh yeah, she was horrified." He goes, "Yeah. Did you hear that she died?" Now, this is something we can do because this will relate to that part of you that's terrified of this situation. And when you imagine this person, see, how do I explain this? Okay, so the technical term is switch referential index. All that means is, let's say that you're the person and a part of you has this issue or is scared or hurt or whatever. So instead of talking to you directly saying you shouldn't feel that way, those people are nothing, screw them, you bring up another story, you bring up another character. So even though he's talking to you, he's talking about this character in this movie and then saying, did you know that in real life she just died? Now, I have to say something. I realized just before this, like, oh, he's doing this on purpose. At least I thought he was, but whether he was doing it consciously or unconsciously, this was happening. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool watching this. And I thought, no, don't do that. Just forget about that and just get caught up in the story. And I thought, because I'm thinking, well, then it's not going to work, right? And I thought, no, I want to watch this. I want to see if it works, even though I'm watching what he's doing. And it did. It still worked regardless. So the minute he said, oh, did you know that in real life she actually died? And I went, really? And all of a sudden, boom, something in my heart dropped and disappeared. Like the tightness just gone. And my forehead and my brain just opened up and relaxed. And I even started laughing. He goes, no, he goes, I'm not joking. I'm serious. And I'm just like, yeah, I believe you. And so then what he did, which was a really, really cool thing, he goes, did you know that I always thought that Shelley Duvall was related to Robert Duvall? You know, that really famous actor? I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. He goes, it turns out, and this is when he separates his hands all the way apart. He goes, there's no connection. They're not related at all. They're not even connected, blah, blah, blah. They're not from the same family, blah, blah. He goes, there's absolutely no connection. He opens his hands, spreads them apart, and there's and so my unconscious mind was like disconnecting from everything. So not only is the story or the structure of it gone in my mind, representing the building, the problem itself died, which would have been, that was Shelley Duvall. That was changing referential indexes, meaning instead of the problem inside me, like she was the representative of it. So when she died inside me, the problem died. So not only is the structure of it gone, the problem's gone, and then he completely disconnects any connection at all. He says there's no connection at all. Let me tell you, when I walked home after that, I felt so good. I'm just on top of the world again. So I remember I on the way home, I was just like, man, I feel so much better. It was really cool. So when I tell you, when people call me with their problems, they literally about 45 minutes, about an hour and 15 minutes into it, they just start breathing deep and they start laughing again, and you could tell they're just open, their voice is resonant and open again. They're breathing deep, their guts relaxed, they're feeling good, and all of a sudden they're happy and looking forward to life again. And that's the way life should be anyways. So here's the deal. I don't know if a normal human being could do that as flawlessly as Andrew did, but I do have a feeling he's either A, been trained in this stuff and just won't admit it, or B, he was a Heyoka, a very good Heyoka in a past life, because he has every sign of being a Heyoka. I will be watching him closer though, paying attention. Learning. You know, I have to tell you guys, it is a really fascinating business work to do to help people to heal, to help people to find their happiness and their joy again, and also to open up to their own heart and their own love, and to bring more of that into the world. It's, you know, when you help someone shift into a better space, into a better emotional feeling, there's nothing more rewarding than that in the world, at least to me. I mean, this is what I do, this is what I love. It is the most meaningful work that I've ever done in my life. 100% of everything I do is about love, communication, understanding, and emotional healing. You know, one thing I realized years ago is you can do anything if you truly felt good about yourself. Now, I don't mean perfect, but you just felt good inside. When people walk away from my sessions, they get big chunks of that. They walk away feeling good about themselves. So what I really mean and what my specialty is helping you to heal emotionally so you can feel good inside about yourself emotionally. Now, I don't mean like, I don't know how to explain this. I don't mean like feel good about who you are. I mean just feel good inside emotionally. Like you just feel good. Because it dawned on me one day, like I just want to feel good inside. And I realized that moment, everything that has held me back was some kind of emotional feeling. Fear, anxiety, shame, embarrassment. Imagine if you literally felt good emotionally in your heart, in your solar plexus, in your belly. You just walked around and you felt good. If you felt good inside emotionally, you can do anything you want. You can go back to college. You could write a book. The only thing that held you back is you didn't feel good in some way. And what I mean is emotionally. I don't mean feel good about other people or what they feel about you. I mean regardless of all that. I mean you just inside you felt really, really good. So one thing I want to do, if you guys want some verification, go to my website, go to the top, and there's a tab. It is the healing tab. It's got 3 drop downs: emotional healing, energy healing, and healing from narcissist abuse. Read the testimonials. Some of them are verified by a company I go through, and watch the videos. Listen to what they say on the actual videos. And then you can go back up to the top and to the right, a couple tabs over, there is the testimonial tab, and I have 3 different pages. I've got healing videos, I've got dating videos, and I've just got dating testimonials. So you can watch and listen to what people are saying after they've done work with me. Alright guys, that's it for this video. God bless you guys. Thank you very, very much for listening. If you like this video, please click subscribe, click the like button, go ahead and make a comment. And if you want, you can go ahead and make a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.